Hi. Now, there's been a lot of talk about the mural in the latest chapter of One Piece, and I've watched several videos. I don't completely agree with all, so I'm going to react to this video, but I am going to talk a lot about my own thoughts. I don't. I've watched a bit of it, but I have not, I think, like 10, 11 minutes of it so far. But I don't fully agree with his thoughts.
Guys, I really don't know how else to put this. Chapter
Let's decrease the
1138
sound
might just
a
be
bit.
the single most important chapter of One Piece post time skip periods. It seems a
I
little bit
think so
crazy
as
to
well.
say it considering we got Joy Boy's reveal, Gear 5, and Vegapunk's message to the world, all of that post time skip, but Oda
Lore
has
is more important.
literally never dropped this level of lore reveal in one
And this is
single
a lot of lore
chapter ever.
in
So
two
of course I see it
pages.
as my responsibility to you guys to break down everything I can about this
Or double
truly
spread, I suppose
insane
it's
mural
called.
double spread on the Atom Tree that depicts the two ancient lost worlds of One
To
Piece.
be honest, I think there's something that Frankie is covering. The main reason is the lightning from this. It doesn't strike the tree. It doesn't look that way. It looks like it strikes something that is um where Frankie is standing. Because you see the lightning there?
And then of course analyze the Harley text that Saul
And
showed to
also it would be
Robin
a bit
and
weird to
see
not
what
draw
we
there
can
and
find
draw
out here
everywhere else.
about the truth of the story. And well, I just gotta say it, if you're a fan of the channel, Ohara stocks are going to the moon right now, I would argue, because I
Ha,
don't
the
really like to
moon.
flex or say that I'm right that often, and honestly not right that often, but I think that me and my team actually deserve some credit here because
I
a lot
I've watched other videos that I think are correct, and one of them was about this energy that people have talked a bit about. I agree that this is probably like dream power or something like that. Like dreams as a literal power source. As like it, and it's not that weird. It might seem weird at first, but it's not that weird when you actually think of it. Like what is like you have hockey, which is literal just willpower, and you have devil fruits that were, you know, as they said, as Vegapunk said, it was well dreams. So it is in the story. There is, and you can see like they throw them over to the other side, seemingly, right? Like inherited will.
of what we were seeing in this
And as you say, and as they said, a man's dream never ends, or something like that.
is actually connected to things that I've been dropping videos on for pretty much the last half year. Pluton being a whale? Yeah, that might be in there.
And if it is dream energy, it would make sense that when they touched the sun, they could actually make the sun god real.
The other gods and Nika coming from an era long before, battling the Titans on the planet? Yeah, I think that might be here as well. And of course, Bing Sake being the literal tale of the true history of the One Piece world and the
I do
endless
think there
cycle of
is
sorrow.
probably somewhat true, but I don't know how true it is. Like how easy, I don't know it, like I don't know if you can actually tell for sure that this is correct, that you have it figured out. This is what the text says, or what the
That
text
plagues the One Piece
means.
world as well is all but confirmed at this point as well, based on everything that we're seeing here and in the text.
There's
I
one
can't be
thing that I
completely
do
honest with you,
disagree with it,
I could
with though.
absolutely at this point make a 3-hour video going
True.
over all the crazy
I watched
possibilities
like
here,
a
but I
over
do think
one
it makes the
hour
most
video
sense for
that
me to break down
just
each of the three
goes
worlds,
over
the
the
Harley
spat
text, and the
double
chunk of the
spread.
mural that represents it with my personal core
Like
ideas,
one
and
and a
then go
half
over some
hour.
other possibilities later on. And then at the end of each Harley world breakdown, 1, 2, and 3, I'll then go over
They
exactly
could
how
definitely go
that part
longer.
lines up perfectly with Bing Socket. And of course, quick disclaimer, I don't know if any of this is actually 100% correct yet, and I'll definitely be talking a lot more about this picture for probably like the next
Oh,
year
a lot
worth
of
of
people
theories,
will.
but I think it makes sense to just go with the core idea that I have right now and that I've been cooking up here. Also, to quickly make a note of it, to get ahead of this crazy info, I of course have to use some of the variant translations out there,
Also, I
including
will
my own
mention, I
actually.
don't think he mentioned it, at least he didn't mention it so far. I don't think it means like a fair amount of the things on the I think that they have multiple meanings. Like yes, they could mean that, but it could at the same time be another thing and represent multiple things.
And as we get official translations and statements from the characters and Oda, some clarity might come in later videos. But I do have to push back on a bunch of theories right from the get-go that are floating around the internet, as there are some ideas saying that this mural only depicts the first world or only depicts the second world.
I also
Honestly, I
disagree
just
with that.
don't really see how that
I
could
think it
ever be the case,
represents all
especially
of the
when we see
worlds.
some specific elements of the first world section, such as the giant hell serpent on the right of the Atom Tree here, and then we see all of the
To be fair though, that hell serpent doesn't it could represent the ancient kingdom. It fights with a what looks like a dragon that comes from a sky. You may call it a celestial dragon. Oh wait. Anyway,
elements from the second world on the left side, again pretty obvious. But we'll get into that. So let's kick it off with the first world, which I believe is depicted on the right side of the mural. Let me
I
describe it for a
think
second. First, we see a bunch
the the first world is this side. If you can see where. So essentially, the mechanism that carries the energy to the city may be part of the hell serpent, as I do think it also represents to some degree the ancient kingdom. It's like a ocean like beasts with X's over it. That for me connects to like pirates. We also know that it was technologically advanced, the ancient kingdom. And again, it's also it's seemingly fighting a dragon. Which there are very few that there I would say there are very few if not only one that really has one group that has like connection to dragons other than actually actually Dragon, Kaido, and like Ryuma because he slayed a dragon. The only ones, and the one that really do connect with dragons, I suppose Kaido is the one that connects most with the dragon because he's actually is a dragon, but not the not the Western dragon, but is the celestial dragons. They're obsessed with them. So like, and they're important. Like the 20 kingdoms, right? And I don't think the 20 kingdoms were necessarily like purely bad. This could also just signify as like a war, right? Two entities fighting could just mean a war between two sides. Like this, the group that made the red line with the hell serpent. Because I don't think it's just a god or something like that. I don't think it's like, oh, God got angry. Because like this is before devil fruits, right? This is not devil fruits. Yes, giant beasts did exist. Hockey most likely existed, as probably always existed in the One Piece world to some degree at least. But yeah,
bunch of elements like a gigantic fire-breathing dragon that is coming down from the sky or the top of the tree, battling the serpent of Hellflame here. Then there's also
as
the
stated,
goon,
it could have multiple meanings.
what appears to be a
Or
city of
doesn't
skyscrapers or a
anyway.
plantation with smokestacks on the right side. Then
I think
interestingly
that
enough,
is it could be the second world, this plantation, but I do think it's probably it represents the first world because that's what it seems like. Oh, they went to like within the earth, or it's spelled, it could mean other, but in the earth or on the earth they found like the sun or fire or whatever, flame, and they got greedy and used it, right? It looks like this. They can't comes up from the earth and puts it into some kind of machine, right? So this seems like the first world, and does this by extension, even though it could technically be the ancient kingdom, sure, they were also technologically advanced. I don't. Anyway,
we have 19 individual people that seem to be riding a pulley or some sort of elevator down into the earth and bringing out fragments of a sun, stars, or something that definitely seems like a power source of some kind. We'll dive
Yes,
very deep into
I,
this in
I
just a moment.
actually I got convinced by the. I don't remember who it was. Was it? I don't remember which of them it was because I was it Grand Line Reviews that took that or was it someone else? I don't remember. I do not remember who said it. I Now that I think about it, I don't think it was Grand Line Reviews. I do think it's Dream Energy.
Then we
It
see
might be the Library of Ohara.
a king with a very large crown, standing on a very distinctly elephant-shaped
To
rock.
be honest though, this person could be a lot of people. I do think it's probably Eam, but that I don't think that the sun energy thing is related to Eam. It could be, but I don't think so.
Object, some oars at their feet, and a giant arc maxim, I think, shooting
This is not the Arc Maxim. It's more likely that the Arc Maxim is was partially based on Uranus.
a lightning bolt at them as well. Oh, wait a second. Actually, that's not quite true because the lightning bolt does seem to actually be firing at the tree in the
I don't think it's striking at the tree because it doesn't hit the bark here. It goes past it and then hits seemingly where in front of Frankie. So I don't think it's hitting that.
middle, as you can see that it actually connects behind the king here into the tree. Then we see some animals, an angel, and what appears to be
Yeah, it's like Noah's flood or Noah's Ark or the flood myth, the flood story, which is not just from the Bible. There are several ones. There are multiple older stories as well. But anyway, this is probably the biblical story though, because of how the boat is shaped. The One of the stories it was a square. The other story it was like a circular boat. I believe that's the Mesopotamian boat. I don't remember. But they are still most likely a big. I don't remember what they're called, but they're used to this day.
the Noah falling down or being carried up.
Uh, it probably going up, but it failed, right? It's like the second world, which is why I think this is the second world. I think this is the second world. As like the flooding and water, which I think this is water because it's the Noah is inside of it, and I think it depicts just the flooding. It could also depict like the elephant, but so I think like the differentiate is like this is the first world, that is the second world.
Either way, we don't know what direction it's going here. With all of these elements that we've talked about, let's discuss
It could
how
also be an elephant, but I do think it also represents the water. I also not sure if the colored version is correct because it colors it brown. This is probably most almost definitely water.
these images from the right side of the mural tie into the Harley text that Saul and Robin are talking about.
In
And
this text, it might strike the tree. Looking at this, I looked at the color, I guess. So I think there's a good chance it's striking at something that is in front of Frankie, but it could just strike the tree.
then I'll go over exactly what I think happened here and why. The text says, the earth burned in endless flame. And I think it's pretty safe to say that the first line is referring
Within the world burned in endless flame. I do not know which of the translations he's using. Uh, so within the earth there is flame. People succumb to. That is not the same. So I don't. I just don't know which translation he's using. It could just not be the official one. I've heard more than one translation. I heard the one from the Library of Ohara. You should definitely watch the video with Tekken and Library. It is pretty long, but it is pretty good as well.
to the city on the right, and how the Earth was an advanced civilization with advanced technology burning on top of an eternal flame of development, industrial strength, and kind of, all that fun stuff. And that first line
I
already
don't
looked
think it
quite nice.
necessarily like says that it's like industrial strength, but like you clearly see it that it's in like it's very technologically advanced. It's like a modern city, if not a slightly more advanced.
Nicely explained the conveyor belt and the pulley system as well, and all the gears and power boxes that we see at the bottom of the page as well. The text goes on to say, mankind overtaken by desire touched upon the forbidden sun. Now that's again pretty simple if you ask me, as I think it's pretty safe to say that based on
I think it's like they touched the power source. I don't think it was a literal sun, but yeah,
Vegapunk's message, it
the whatever power source that Vegapunk was talking about, which I am convinced now that it was dreams or some form of dream power source. It could be something else, but it could literally be dreams.
does seem like the idea of Icarus flying too close to the sun is something that Oda wants us to apply to the Harley text as well. In case you're not familiar with the
Maybe, I don't know.
Greek myth, the idea is that a person overtaken by greed bit off more than they could chew and tried to harness the power of the forbidden sun for themselves. Again,
Kinda?
probably to boost their own technological power and gain more control. Now what's really interesting to me right out of the gate here is that it does seem like the forbidden flame is actually below the world itself, as the slaves here seem to go down into the core without a star spark and then come.
The question with this is, does on the other side, so there's an elevator of people with halos, is that elevator going up with the people with halo, or does it go down? I've heard cases for both. I'm not sure which it is. I'm not sure.
Back
So
up
are they
with one. They do
ascending,
seem to
or
offer
are they
or show it
basically
to their
dead
king
people?
and then put it into the,
The
technological
sacrifices.
city here. Next up, we then have the line of the
Could be both.
enslaved prayed and the sun god appeared. We do know this one thanks to Kuma and who's
The sun prayed. I believe they. As they seized the forbidden, the slaves wished and prayed. The sun god appeared.
of the enslaved prayed and the sun god appeared. We do know this one thanks to Kuma and Who's Who, because these are the enslaved people, the first world, wishing someone would stop their suffering, and then Nika appears. Now the one big problem I have with this is, where in this mural is Nika? Where is the sun god in?
Doesn't have to be there. It in the first world, it doesn't really say that Nika or the sun god really says anything. It just said that he appeared. So could be nothing. It could literally be not be there, as he might not be relevant to the first world. We have no idea.
In this image, because
Where are the slaves? Are these the slaves? There are 19 of them. Are these like the 21st kings? I do think these are the slaves, though.
we don't really see anything on the right side of this mural that does resemble Joy Boy or Luffy or the other
Again, it doesn't have to.
that we've seen so far. Is he the king here? Is he in the Arc Maxime? Well, maybe, but I'd say no. I actually think, and I really like this idea, that he is the giant dragon with the wings in the middle.
Could be multiple meanings. As that this could represent like the the fucking sun god, or maybe the fucking hellfire fire serpent is related to the sun god. I don't know. I don't think so.
Left here. Don't worry, I'll go way deeper into that idea in just a moment, because I think I actually need to cover the last part of this first and then tie it all together.
This is going to be a long video.
Really
I'm not going to stop
Text goes on,
stopping
the
as
deity
much.
of the earth is enraged, and together with the serpent of hellflame, they engulf the world with death and darkness.
Where's the Earth God?
Now, one part of this
Again,
really clear and
because
obvious, I think, is
they
the
don't
giant
have to
serpent
be
of
on the mural.
hellflame that's battling the dragon in the sky. Call me crazy, but I
Like
do think
just
we're all
like where you say like Nika or the sun god doesn't have to be on the mural, just like whereas the earth god. The earth god and the hell flame serpent are very much seem like different entities, different beings, right? So where is the Earth God? Is the dragon the Earth God? Is the demon on the other side of the tree the Earth God? Where's the Earth God? Again, don't have to be there.
In the same boat here, right? That the giant snake here is the giant serpent of Hellflame. Engulfing the world in death and darkness is actually super easy, barely an inconvenience if the god of earth and this serpent slayed Nika, and this would cause death and destruction all around, but would also
But
engulf the
Nika is not
world
the
in quite
literal sun,
literal
though.
darkness.
Like it
Remember,
says the sun god appeared. Does that mean the sun didn't exist before then? Nuh-uh. The sun god and the sun are different things.
that would mean that the sun itself would be defeated, and I do think that that's the
Like literally, but like it does. I understand what they say. It's like more of a figurative sense.
context of
Kill
this
the
very
sun, you
line
made
here,
the night.
bringing the night where Luffy will bring the dawn. And don't worry,
Yes.
like many of you, at first I assumed that these three massive creatures across the full mural must be the gods, but here it actually clearly states that
No.
the serpent is a separate entity that teamed up with one of the
Yeah,
gods,
in
which
that, in
means
that
that there
case,
must be
where's
a
the Earth God? So it doesn't. So the Sun God doesn't have to be there either. Like, where's the Sun God? Doesn't have to be there. Just like how the Earth God, despite being immensely important very important in this first text, he basically isn't there.
completely different beings altogether. And this leads me to fully settle on the idea of Nika being the dragon in the middle of
I
the
don't.
mural on the top here. Now, of course, as for what happened to the Serpent of Hellflame and Nika after this battle, well, big shocker, I also think that the giant world snake from Hell probably was at some point buried, enclosed, or petrified, and thus became
I'm
the
not
Red
sure.
Line. And this actually lines up quite nicely with something that we
I'm
saw
not
all
sure
the way
whether
back in
it's an
chapter
actual creature or not.
129. So honestly, is it not just insanely cool to see how all this stuff being foreshadowed that early in the series
I
is
think
now
there's a
coming
good
back to
chance
make a lot
it
of
isn't,
sense? Because the idea is that the red line is the
because like the
blood-soaked
red
serpent that
line would
Oil
have to be
Groggy mentioned here as the only
incredibly
thing that
like
could survive the
that thing
Hakoku
had to
sovereignty
be
attack that they perform
ginormous.
here. And of course, the Hell Serpent being the red line would line up pretty nicely with the Nordic tale of the Jormungandr, the world
I
serpent
do
that
think that
surrounds
the
the
red
world,
line
and it would explain why
does
Emu,
represent
the person who might have summoned it,
the world
eventually put
serpent.
his own kingdom on top of its body, paying tribute to its battle. And then, honestly, I think Emu probably took Uranus and held onto it until eventually he could tap back into the great power of the Forbidden Sun himself at some point in the future. So, with all of that broken down initially, we are now left with a few key elements to explain here. Who is the god of the earth? What's the deal with the lightning bolt shooting Arc Maxime? And what is going on with this Zunisha-shaped figure and the Noah? Well,
It's the water, it's the wave. It's very simple. It's very simple to understand. Like the world was flooded, right? The Noah is underwater, and the people there are, and it's the Noah's Ark, right? The flood story. This is a wave. It could also represent Zunisha, as it does look like an elephant, but that on top looks more like a boat because like oars. But hey,
my version of the tale of the first world as I see it, and then you might understand a little bit better. Here's what I think. Emu, the god king of earth, rules over the world. It's
I
an
don't
ancient
think
world where
Emu is that
titanic
old.
beasts exist, such as the Hellflame red blood serpents. And on this planet, Emu rules over a massive civilization with industry and skyscrapers and has enslaved the people of the entire world, but this power and status is not enough for him somehow.
I think
They
it's more
exist on an
likely that
advanced
the
planet
Lunarians
created by
were
the
the
ancient
gods'
Lunarians, a
leaders
group of
beforehand, and not
angelic god beings that, with their advanced technology, retrofitted their own
as they
solar
were to
system
have
star
been
into a
said
giant Dyson sphere, which is
that
a
they
super
were
advanced
on the
machine
red
planet
line
structure that surrounds a star,
and were
harvesting
considered
all
the
the
gods
core
before
threads. I think that they used
the
the
people.
ancient weapons to cover the world in water and land, and the Great Blue Sea cools the star this way. Then, as a result, Titanic
Very
beasts
much don't
grew
agree
and
with this.
society started flourishing on a world with truly rich resources and limitless energy. And Emu, the new king of this planet, wants to do the unthinkable by having his slaves steal the power from the Forbidden Sun itself, which is the core of their sphere. And yes, this might sound crazy, but remember a bunch of you guys also said that when I pitched the idea of two ancient previous wars that flooded the world twice, so let me explain here for a second. We do know that there were giant ancient creatures like Zunisha, the skull on Onigashima, the beasts in the Florian Triangle, triangle maybe, and this has always kind of rubbed me the completely wrong way. But of course, it would make a lot of sense, I think, if the planet itself was actually unnatural, artificial, and mutation is actually what caused these creatures to grow to such a massive size. Just a little food for thought here in case Oda is making a message similar to Godzilla about the dangers of atomic bombs and nuclear power. But as for why I think that it's a Dyson sphere specifically, well, to be honest, I've
I
always kind of
don't.
felt like there were a bunch of really odd things that pointed this way. I actually recently talked about this very idea with Joy Girl on my new podcast, Drink Sake, and it's been an idea that I've been struggling to write into a theory for a while now because we needed just a little bit more evidence for this, and oh boy, do we get a lot in this chapter. The main point of this idea is the weird model of the solar system on the island of Ohara here that you
First of all, in a solar system, if it was, the planets would have revolved around basically the same way. And right, this is pretty much basically almost always the case, and they would even be moving the same direction. That there is it isn't always the case that they always move in the same direction, but anyway, it is the most common thing that I know of. This looks like a planet with multiple moons. This does not look like a solar system. If you ever looked at a solar system, this does not look like a solar system. And again, a planet can have multiple moons. Just look at Saturn, Jupiter. Heck, even Mars has two moons, and like it's not that crazy to have like six moons.
probably all know. It's of course what's known as a geocentric model where the Earth is at the center of the solar system, which has always kind of left me with a sneaky suspicion that the world was not just a regular planet. Especially since we don't see
I
any
do
other of
think
these
it's a regular
planets or
planet.
moons ever rotating around the One Piece planet to begin with. But if the planet
Hey, moons are usually pretty far away. That you can go there with like a weather balloon is like it's not normal. You know, it's not a normal planet. They have floating islands. Like the moon is very far away. It's like more than a light second, which is like 300,000 kilometers. Heck, you can fit all the planets of our solar system between the Earth and the moon. So it's quite a large distance. This image, the moon wouldn't be in it. I could have shown it. Just look at this video with the scale for like how far away the moon is. It's very big.
it was actually a Dyson sphere, then this would explain a lot of the
If that was a Dyson sphere, then well,
really weird issues that we have in the One Piece world, such as this model, as it would mean that the
no, that model is not a problem, as I've stated. A planet can have multiple moons. It's not that strange. Like the Earth having a gigamoon is strange, but having multiple moons or even big moons compared to the planet, not to like the moon being that big compared to the planet is unusual, but still, you've seen stranger.
solar system here isn't at all geocentric, it's actually correctly heliocentric, and it's just that the world itself
Yeah, but that would like that as a solar system, even if that was a Dyson sphere, that would be immensely strange. Okay, first of all, like where did you get this amount of atmosphere? Where did you get the gas from? That's impressive. That's damn impressive. But also like the planets are going in all different ways, right? They're not going in in around the same like axis, and they're not as round as usual planets anyway. And they're gigantic. These planets are humongous. Like Jupiter is tiny compared to the sun. The sun is like 99% of the mass, and this planet would have to be bigger than the sun naturally. So, like this would be like a star in terms of a size if this is a Dyson sphere. It's truly humongous. That doesn't. It makes less sense if you're trying to rationalize this. It looks more like a planet than a star system. Sorry if you think that. You're wrong.
is the star. The One Piece world is the star of the solar system. Also,
No.
staying on this idea for a second, as we
Also,
learn
where do they get the light from? If this is the star, do they have two stars? Is this just the tiny star? They do exist. Dwarf star, like they're um what is it called? Um, a solar system with two stars or even more aren't that uncommon.
from Enel's cover
So I
stories, you
suppose it's
can apparently
possible. It
just
just
pilot a ship
doesn't make
up to the
sense.
moon or even float up with balloons, and that of
As
course
stars are
physically
quite big.
makes no sense whatsoever unless the world is a Dyson sphere and it's created an artificial atmosphere with the stronger gravity of an entire
What? Where would you get all that gas from? Where would you get all the gas to make the atmosphere? Like, sure. Oh, it's fiction. They have developers. Is that weird? No, but I think it's less strange that this is just a planet. I think that is the more insane answer that yes, in fact this is a Dyson sphere. We not only built an atmosphere that could reach the moon, but also we we made we made an entire like large as Earth on the entirety of the Dyson sphere. Not only did do that, we made oceans on it. But not only that, you can continue. Anyway, that would be
star, and
truly
the
bizarre.
atmosphere
Who would do
includes the
that?
moon that we see in the One Piece world.
I suppose you
So
could
thanks to that big
see
atmosphere, the moon is now
stranger.
actually reachable and safe, and that's why Enel can breathe up there as well, or these little
I think it
automatons can
makes
float
more
up.
safe and more assume that yeah, it's just closer. It's just bizarrely close. Like planets are far away. Even if this was a Dyson sphere, planets are far away. Much farther away than the moon is compared to the Earth. Like that is no.
With their balloons. And actually, speaking of the former god of Skypiea, let's actually talk a little bit more about him as well. Enel's Rygo attack is incredibly similar, of course, to Uranus's laser that destroyed
Yes.
the Lucia, and it would make sense that he may have been inspired to design it based on some of the ruins from his hometown Burka, one of the Sky Islands. And if you're saying right now, so what? This is actually a key point, as we found out from his cover story that the moon civilization is actually also called Burka. And this means that Enel is a direct descendant of the Sky races who came initially from the moon, but just not the Lunarians. And this part is a little bit confusing, but you can just see it in the fact that one has flames and black wings, and everyone else from the murals in the Moon City Burka doesn't have any of these features. Okay, but let's get back to the chapter here. I gotta be real here, there's just so much going on in 1138, and you haven't seen anything yet. But let's swing back to the planet being a star, because
I don't think maybe Lunarians came from the moon before, but I think that I think it was the Lunarians that in the first world ruled the planet. And a bit after, maybe after the first world, like in between the first and second, Lunarians were the god kings of Earth because like we know for a fact that the Lunarians used to be considered gods before the Celestials dragons kicked them out of the Red Line,
there is a chance that I'm wrong.
which would have to be before, like at least before the great like the second war, the war on the second world with like Nika, the Void Century would have to be before that.
The Forbidden Sun is actually just straight up the Earth's core, a planet's core, and the giant serpent is a native titan to this massive natural planet. Now, if that
I don't think the Hellfire Serpent is a living thing because my god, that would be so much larger than anything else in One Piece.
turns out to be the case, not this being a Dyson sphere, but an actual planet, I'm also totally happy because that would mean that my Titan piece theory would stay around winning, but I really like the idea that it's a massive machine from a super old foregone era. Because remember, even though it's technically known as the first world, given how technologically advanced it is, there is history before that as well. Like, how did everything become so
It's called the first world because that's the first civilization. Like they hadn't been collapsed before. That's why it's called the first world. It doesn't mean like it didn't have a history before it. It's not like they poofed and it happened. No, it's because there hadn't been any like calamity like before.
advanced to begin with, right? But also, all of this would really actually help me explain as well what the eternal flame is too. It's not some magical whatever fire that exists or the burning flame on the back of a Lunarian god like Nika. It's the planet itself. It's the real sun at the center of the world. The very sun that we see slaves going down to harvest and being brought.
But we also see people from the other side throwing over the flames to other people anyway.
Up to Emu.
I don't
Right.
agree.
With that out of the way though, let's now cover the
But
other
maybe.
part of that story. So, the slaves suffer, burn, and struggle as they try to harvest the star for Emu's advanced civilization. The slaves pray, and from their prayers, an angel descends, which is the leader of the Lunarians, an overseer of the sun god Nika. He of course cannot.
To be fair, the sun god Nika could have just been a warrior, could have just been a Lunarian. That could legitimately be it. But I don't think the angel on the scripture is Nika. I do not think we see Nika on the other side of the tree. It would be strange for him to be depicted in a totally different way.
Not allow this to happen as he knows that man is inherently greedy, and thus he brings down his own ship, Uranus, which is the original Arc Maxine. And this is how he plans to deal with Emu. However, at the same time, a great creature from the planet is alerted to Nika's foreign presence as well. We're talking about the Hellflame Serpent, who protects the core, awakens, and then attempts to battle Nika alongside the.
It's in the stories depicted that the Hellfire Flame Serpent reacted to whatever the civilization did, the greedy man or whatever. That's it. Not like some other foreign like this entity appeared. Like it was because of the Earth God was angry. I'm pretty sure. Like it reacted to like the Earth God got angry. Urgh, that's what it. The Earth God got angry, and then the Hell Flame Serpent arrived. Not like Nika appeared.
God King of Earth, Emu. As a result, the Earth God and the Red Serpent.
As it doesn't say that the Sun God really fought the Earth God or anything like that. It says the Earth God got angry, and like the Hellflame Serpent did something, and I don't know if that is an actual creature. That would be insane, but hey, it would be cool if it was an actual creature as well.
And defeat Nika, who attempts to at least take down the civilization. Okay, but if this is true, who would have alerted Nika, and who helped the slaves, the
I
animals?
think the Hellflame Serpent represents the Red Line and the Ancient Kingdom.
And the angel race on the planet survived to begin with. Well, I think it might have been none other than the Titanic
Because,
creature.
like, why would you have all the X's on the Hellflame Serpents? What's if it just like goes for the whole red line thing, you wouldn't even need to do that. Like the snake part and the road part or whatever in the middle. Heck, you could just a snake in the description in the Helm Flame, and it breathing fire with the first world and whatever would have been enough for people to understand that it represents the red line. But it has like X's on it, and it breathes fire against like a dragon coming from the sky. Which you see the planets and the moon there, so it seems like it comes from like Celeste the heavens, or celestial, a celestial dragon.
Zunisha. And this beast is then commanded to walk the world by the God King as the arc of humanity slowly sinks into the rising ocean.
I'm pretty sure that it was commanded by the Kosuki, because why would it listen to the Kosukis if not that they gave the punishment? Like, it did a grave crime, and so the Kosukis commanded, no, no, you're going to walk the earth forever. I don't think it was the God King or Eam or something like that.
And Zunisha wanders as the sea rises, forced into exile by the human king.
I think it's I think it was like it's because it seems like it was on the side of um of Joy Boy, right? He speaks like that. But if he betrayed Joy Boy and joined the Eam or whatever, or the Ocean God or something like that, that would have been a great crime, and that would have essentially, well, him kind of justify it for from their perspective, to like, you're going to walk the earth forever, right? If the Kozukis had that power to command Zunisha, if they had that power and Zunisha betrayed them,
Emu. On a
boom.
quick side note, I will absolutely concede at this
I
point
don't
that
think
the
it's that simple
Zunisha
though.
part is a little bit of a stretch. However, I
Yes,
do think it's the best place that they would fit into everything here if that's actually Zunisha here. And now,
maybe they just like, screw Zunisha. We're not gonna draw that bitch traitor. So they literally just made a way.
I also believe that it does make some sense considering that we do know that he did originally do something really bad to be punished and roam the world after.
Or maybe that's why he wasn't painted in the mural, though. That would be very funny, though, in my opinion. But he could represent both the wave and Zunisha.
So with that idea up in the air, what if the Noah was actually used to carry the animals onto Zunisha's back, as he knew or saw Nika and the serpent's battle was gonna flood the entire world? Eventually then all of
No,
the
but we know for a fact that the Noah failed, so it's definitely not that. That's not the case.
animals that we see here then evolved into the minks, and they gained some crazy powers from.
That's definitely not the case, because we know for a fact that the Noah failed. That's why Joy Boy apologized. So it's not the case. It failed. That's why it's still under the water, because it failed.
That very battle that took place there. Honestly, I don't really know if this makes sense, and it's kind of the part of
It
this
doesn't.
theory I'm personally not too set on at all just yet.
Good
But
to
I
be
think
honest.
the elements are at least all there and don't conflict with anything we've talked about so far, so take it with a grain of salt, but I think it could make sense. But back to the
bit.
story now, because it's crazy. I think it's pretty awesome, and I literally have been analyzing this mural for 12 or so hours a day for the past few days. So to me, the depiction of Nika as a giant dragon from the moon does make a lot of sense. Number one, dragons are the absolute pinnacle of power in the One Piece world. They're often gods in various mythologies and even in biblical texts. And it also seems like the Earth God and the Serpent of Hellflame are supposed to be working together based on what's said in Harley, so I don't really think that the dragon here could be the Earth God, because at least to me it seems very clearly to be the case that the two are battling.
But
like
you
the
would
dragon
assume by
battling
that like the Hellflame, this serpent or whatever, only represents the Hellflame serpent and nothing else, right?
the serpents, not them teaming up. But I will admit that I guess theoretically they could together be trying to destroy the Arc Maxime, and I really hope that is not the case, because man, will it make things
That's
so
an
much
interesting
harder to
thought.
interpret if that were to be true. But that now leaves me with one solid answer, at least for now, which
Maybe
is
the
that
original creation of the red line was not a bad thing, but like it ended up being that
Earth God
a
is
bad
Emu,
idea.
and in that case, God is being used to describe the person at the peak of the world, not necessarily a literal deity with supernatural powers. Which just leaves us with another really interesting issue, because why did Nika try to attack the tree here potentially? But once again, looking into it, I do think it actually makes a lot of sense and might explain something that the giant said and why the sunlight tree Eve is located on top of the red line or inside of it. Because what if it's not the planet's core, but actually the sunlight Eve tree's roots, what the slaves were harvesting, and they were drawing power from the core or sun at the center of the world, as in the roots were. Remember, it's kind of implied that the tree on Ohara and Eve are other Adam trees, but that the original Adam tree is the oldest. So what if Nika knew that he couldn't actually win this battle at this point, but decided to set Imu back by attacking the Adam tree itself, having to wait centuries before another tree actually grew large enough to start harvesting again? And really, that's just one of about 56 million questions I have about this mural and chapter, and like, it's truly kicking off the drums of liberation in my own chest. And before we move on to the second world now, I want to say I'm unbelievably pumped with
this is what caused the seas to rise. Whether this was, or that the Uranus was used to rise the sea levels. What side did this? I'm not sure. I'm legitimately not sure if this was the ancient kingdoms doing or if this was done by Eam. I'm not sure.
How this chapter ended and what it means for the rest of the story. And if you want to join me on that very epic journey and you like what we're doing here on the channel, please consider becoming a Patreon. A little plug here, because it really makes a huge difference in letting me get some wild and cool art, like the high resolution version of the mural right here that you saw in the thumbnail, and having a whole team of artists and editors and people who theorize with me around the clock to give you guys some truly polished and refined and insane ideas to consider as well. As you can imagine, it's a lot of fun, but also a little bit expensive, so your support really makes that happen. Alright, but now, as promised, let's talk a little bit about how I believe that this part of the Harley weaves into the song Bing's Sake. I previously already mentioned in my Bing's Sake theory that the entire piece was basically just the tale of Joy Boy's life, but I also left some room for it to be about Nika in one part and then Joy Boy in the other, and I think that that second answer is literally what's the case here. You see, in the first section of Bing's Sake, there are lines about the merry evening sun and about saying goodbye to my old hometown as waves of gold and silver spray. And to me, this seems to line up pretty nicely with the Harley sections about the Forbidden Star and the depictions of war.
I don't mean the person like the Nika, I'm talking about in general, like Joy Boy, Luffy, and that journey to get whatever they're talking about, Binks' brew or whatever. And like they shall never meet again.
Bing's Sake refers to the Song of the Sky, and in a translation we see it adapted as birds drawing circles in the sky officially and setting sail to the ends of the sea, and in the murals we do see a massive beast with wings from the sky help cause the end of the world. And while I definitely could make the case that Nika is the bird or tied to the Song of the Sky, I actually do believe it's much more accurate to attach that line to Uranus, as I also did in my original theory. I just think now that there's actually a double play here where the bird circling was a translation to refer to death and destruction, as birds circle to mark the signs of a dead body as well. And if you have no idea what I'm talking about with Bing's Sake, go check out that video afterwards, because I mean, I can't go into all the details how I retranslated the song, but if you check it out, it'll make a lot more sense why I think that, you know, it talks about the ancient weapons and the world getting flooded twice, which was actually the original theory that made me speculate that this was all true to begin with. But with that being said, to be completely real with you, I don't know which half of this mural I'm more excited about, because seeing all the crazy new stuff from the first world is absolutely
I think
amazing,
this is all
but
three.
there's also
Three different worlds.
monumental about seeing our ever first depiction of the Void Century on the left here as well. Like, seriously, my blood is absolutely rushing. Like, my blood pressure probably too high right now. I kind of feel like Year Second Luffy right now, for real. Like, feel it pumping. Alright, we have Joy Boy, we have Demon Emu, the War of the World, and then all of Joy Boy's freedom fighters, fighters battling it out in one massive epic mural. I mean, I gotta say, like, I kind of feel like a kid in a candy store right now, and just like a kid in a candy store, it's time to go wild with all of these sweet little treats that we got here. First, let's break down the Harley text for the second world and see how we can connect it to this massive battle that we see on the left side of the mural here. Because we see a
Because like
bunch of
this
stuff in
battle
this battle.
fits pretty well also with with modern day. Emmett returned with Luffy. This looks like Loki, Luffy, a Lunarian. We have others. They exist. There's a possibility. I have no idea. This could be multiple things. It could just be a random mink. I'm not sure if this is the correct coloration though.
Such as a depiction of a figure like Joy Boy or Nika, a large demon with wings holding the literal sun, and a boat that is on its side as well. Now, opposite of the demon, following this Joy Boy figure, are many soldiers that seem to match the following races. We see a giant and probably an ancient giant, as well as a mink and what appears
I think
to
you got those orders wrong. Like this is an ancient giant. This is a giant.
be a giant and probably an ancient giant, as
Reverse. This is the ancient giant. This is the actual giant.
well as a mink and what appears to be a Sulong form mink. Then with them there are
It doesn't have to be. It could be someone that uses a devil fruit. Like I don't know. Yamato?
also what appears to be the Alabastians and Samurai, who are
It doesn't have to be all bastions. The fucking what's they called? The Kuja. It could have been the Kuja as well. They have a pretty similar
then joined
ones
by
as well.
the Tontata, a giant robot that does look a lot like Emeth, and a Lunarian, I guess. Notably missing are Zunisha or an angel with white wings. And I make note of the Alabastian specifically based on this one boat with the circle surrounded by other circles, which we now do know is a shared element between many groups associated with Joy Boy, but coincidentally is also the literal flag of Alabasta. But one thing that we didn't expect is there is a big
There's a big whale there. Woohoo. What's it called? Kuja Pirates. Flag. Kuja flag. I think that symbol on the boat is most similar to like the just the ancient kingdom symbol.
big whale with
Not
raindrops coming from the sky, a massive mermaid with a trident, and a fish. Alright, well, with all of that covered,
Anyway.
I think it makes the most sense to go through the Harley the same way that we did with the first world and cover it chunk by chunk, starting with the very first line of the One Piece world's second world. In emptiness, there is breath. The forest god dispatched demons. Alright, right out of the get-go, I actually love and hate this line at the same time, as it creates a super epic visual of hope and life rising from the ashes of the first world, but it also pisses me off a little bit because I don't yet have the exact Japanese words used for dispatched as of writing of the script, and I want to know if it means
Is this the original translations for the unofficial translation? Because the official translation is better. Uh, it said capture devils, but I heard from Library of Ohara that it's basically this. You get it, it's basically the creation of devil fruits.
the forest god got rid of demons or created and sent out his demons, because it kind of massively changes how this figure should be interpreted, right? For now though, I'm gonna go with the idea that the forest god
It's basically
created and sent out the demons, and this refers to either the devil fruits, I
Yes.
think, or the D-clan. I will say that the devil fruits make way more sense here,
Devil
as
fruits.
fruits come from
creation of
trees,
devil
and
fruits.
trees are in forests, hence the forest god creates demons, and so it would be the forest god making the literal devil fruits. troops. But it's kind of hard to tell considering that Emu called the D-Clan demons, and there is actually a later section of the Harley that I think much more accurately calls out who the D-Clan really are. Then the text says, the sun did nothing but spread the seeds
Yeah, well,
of
why
war.
would the
Which I will say leaves
giants
some pretty big
call...
space for some cool
Why would the giants call, like, the D-Clan demons?
but I do
Devils.
genuinely believe here that the
It
strongest
doesn't make
idea
sense
is
for
that
them to
since
call
it
them
is
devils
not
in this
referred to
case.
as the Forbidden Sun,
Even
the
if they
words
have been
used
called
here
that.
might be referring to Joy Boy, who is the reincarnated sun god, spreading the seeds of war by rallying troops from all over the world. The seeds of war then could be all of the various races that we see that I
Then you
mentioned
don't
earlier
depict the
who are
third
fighting
world.
alongside of Joy Boy. Now the
So I
biggest line in
guess
this
you could-
section, I think, is the people of the half moon saw a dream and the
Had a
people
dream.
of the moon saw a dream, which seriously is a super cool line and might just be confirming a theory that people have been talking about for probably decades at this point. In case you don't know what I'm talking about, the idea is that the symbol of the D-Clan isn't referring to a shortened word like demon, dreamer, dawn, but is actually a emoji, a symbol for the literal half moon. And when you look at it,
I don't
it
think
does
it's
make
that
a lot of
simple.
sense and might refer to those that descended from Nika or have some other type of attachment to the moon in some way.
I do think it
hence
means
them
something.
being the half moon. But honestly, that alone is probably another
As
giant
I'm pretty
theory
sure
for
they
another
have
day.
opened
For
that
now,
question
I
in
think
the story as
idea
well, so
here
it
is
wouldn't
that
make
the
sense for it to
remaining
just
Lunarians
mean
and
like a
the
half moon.
D-Clan, Lunarians from the moon, D-Clan half moon, foresaw what would happen, and then a massive battle takes place to fulfill
I think
that
it's
damn
just a way
prophecy.
to
Which now
refer
just
to them.
leaves us with the final lines and what might be the prophecy itself. Man became gods after slaying the sun, the deity of the sea rampaged, and they can't be met again. Men becoming gods after slaying the sun is a bit of a tough one, but I do think I have a pretty solid idea of what it is trying to say potentially. We do know the Holy Land or Godland is on top of the red line, and that currently the people who live up there are the 20 kingdoms and Emu, or 19 kingdoms without Alabasta. That's of course at least according to the history that we learned from the Gorosei and from Emu. And so seeing as we already called out that the sun in this section of Harley is most likely referring to Joy Boy, not Nika or the Forbidden Eternal Flame, I kind of believe that the 20 kingdoms, which we see sailing next to the shadowy Emu demon monster, ascend and will take their place as the gods of the world when they defeat Joy Boy. These 20 families remained loyal to him after the original First World disaster and are rewarded for their loyalty after Emu defeats Joy Boy. They then enter the Holy Land and become the Celestial Dragons, who, for all intents and purposes, are the gods of the One Piece world in the new era. Then, as we see the god of the sea rampaged, that one actually just is pretty simple. The world gets flooded by one of the other ancient weapons being used, which could be Poseidon in this
Again,
case.
I don't think that's the this part of the left side of is the second world, because you see on the right side it's like the Noah underwater, or Noah below the surface, because it's has oars on the top where the king stands. So I'm pretty sure that's the second world, or at least related to it.
Form of the mermaid and fish on Team Joy Boy, but I do have an issue with Poseidon and the sea god being the same thing, honestly, because the gods in the Harley are currently completely stumping me, I gotta say, because sometimes it may refer to ancient weapons, and sometimes it seems to be things that clearly aren't the ancient weapons, I think. So I kind of have to leave it up in the air right now as a hard maybe on it actually being Poseidon, and I'm leaning away from that and towards the idea that Lily, who is set up to be a somewhat of a foil to Emu, might be the actual sea goddess who used an ancient weapon like Poseidon or Pluton to sink the world once again. Now this is actually the point where I also want to talk about how the rain god could be Pluton, and we do see a whale surrounded by rain, weirdly enough, in the top of this mural. And really, I have a whole video on that idea specifically, so if you want to know more about why I think that this is the case, you can check that out after as well. But right now, we don't see any specific ship that could resemble a giant deadly battleship, but we do see a big old whale with a lot of rain, and that seems like our best bet right now at Pluton.
Could also be
from
the
side
the
of
land
world as
whales,
far
or
as I
no,
see it.
what
Alright, but with these ideas
are they
and breakdowns
called
out of the
again?
way now,
The
let me run you through my version of the story
fucking
based on everything that I'm seeing here. From the
Laboon.
darkness, there's chaos.
Those
Emu
whales.
survived the last war, the first world, and realized just how weak they actually were. They realized they need way more power and need to become the strongest person, no, not person, being alive. And to do this, they need to grow a new tree and take the forbidden sun for themselves so that they can lay waste to the remaining
No, but the
Titan-sized
sun
beasts
died.
and everyone else who would
They
oppose
didn't
him.
take
And to
the
do
sun.
this,
The
I
sun was
believe
killed,
that Emu
right?
did
Remember?
the absolute unthinkable. I think that Emu might have consumed the literal corpse of Nika and thus harvested
What?
the sun god's powers for himself.
No, but the
what Emu
sun and the sun god are different things. Because you see, they use the word the sun god, right? And then the sun is not in the same context. So I think the sun refers to like the energy source and whatever that powered the old world, while the sun god is Nika.
didn't expect was that his will
And
would
remember, the sun died, right?
still reincarnate separately, and that happens in the form of Joy Boy and Nika's devil fruits. Joy Boy then rallies the people of the world.
No, but then
forming
then
a
then he would have then Joy Boy, no, then fucking Emu would have the sun god fruit,
united force of many oppressed or
unless it had
exiled
already
races to
reincarnated.
stand
But
against
anyway,
Emu, and this D-clan, the people of the half moon, maybe Emu is the other half, who knows, are now formed from a variety of races. And to power them all up, he works alongside the forest god to create the devil fruits, spreading them to his allies in an effort to take down Emu with the power of hope and dreams. The devil fruits potentially being the will of the people who died in the first world, but again, that's an idea for a different video. However, all
that
of
is
this is
a
still
idea.
not enough. They together still can't defeat Emu, and so they hatch up a backup plan. They will sync the eternal flame with the ancient weapon, and by doing that,
What?
Emu will no longer have access to this full power and will no longer be able to access the forbidden sun. They then release the poneglyphs and tell the tale of Joy Boy and Nika to the next reincarnation, basically stalling until the next time that the ancient weapons can properly be used to destroy Emu once and for all. Okay, I gotta admit, this is a lot, but I don't think it's anything all too crazy and new. Like, really, the biggest new thing I'm gathering from all of this is that Emu may have consumed Nika, which, again, sounds crazy, I know, but look at what we see in the actual mural. I really think that the little king is Emu on the right side here, but collectively, the fan base are all nearly certain that the giant creature on the left is also Emu holding the sun, which I will say I'm a little bit hesitant on, just because it would mean that he's the only person who's on both sides of the mural. So I would argue
Well, he's the only one that so far that we know of that is like 900 years old that has survived since the Void Century. So both, I'm pretty sure both are Emu. We see the Noah sinking. Why would they have something that happened in the second world right of or left of something that happened in the second if it happened after?
there's also a chance that the original Earth God is Emu's.
I also think that the fire that while there is reference to flames, they do say in the second world the fires of war or something like that. The sun or the sun god. I think it was the sun. The fires of war. In which case, where's the fire? The snake and the dragon. So I think that's part of the second world, not the first world. Well, I think the snake is also part of the first world. Because again, I think it has double meaning.
Ancestor, and nothing really breaks that way, but for all I know, it might just be him. Okay, but now back to why I think that Emu ate Nika, and it kind of all boils down to the features that are shared with the dragon right here. Giant wings, the horns, and the power to harness the forbidden sun fully, or just literally holding the sun god, Nika. To me, it kind of seems like Emu here gained the powers of the dragon Nika. And yes, we know of course that Joy Boy and now Luffy had the devil fruit and Nika's will, but that doesn't mean that Emu couldn't have have either possessed Nika with a shadow or just literally consumed him or ate him to steal his powers, kind of like Blackbeard does. And actually,
Yeah, but
little
then he
side
would
note,
still
since we're
have it.
just talking about Teach, it
Unless
would
you were gonna
actually
say that
explain
they're
so
not.
much about him as well. How did he take Whitebeard's devil fruit? What is his special lineage? And why does he want to be king of the world? Well, what if Blackbeard is a literal descendant of Emu and he's
What?
actually Nerona D. Teach and his special family power is cannibalistically eating people to consume their powers? This
I
might
don't think
literally
that's
be
the
why
case.
Shanks and the Gorosei are scared of his power, as it's the same as Emu's, and Blackbeard's goal of taking over the world is actually something he sees as his own birthright. He himself might also be a fallen
And
celestial
Blackbeard
dragon, or
could be the
possibly
one
a
that
banished one, kind
represents
of like
the
Doflamingo
demon
and
on
Shanks, and
the
it's
left,
just that he's a
and not
descendant
Emu.
of the world's worst person ever, Emu. Just a little side note. But now before we move into the third section of the Harley and Luffy,
think
we
it's
can
most
definitely
likely
quickly
the
tie
Emu,
in
though.
the text into Bing Sake as well, as the tale of Joy Boy is a lot clearer in the middle part of the song. A storm from a far off land? That kind of sounds like Emu and the Ancient Weapons being used to me, especially the whale with the rain. Then there's the Song of the Sea, which definitely has ties to Poseidon, and the portion of the Harley talking about the wrath of the sea god. Again, I go into more detail why these lines are the ancient weapons in that other video. Then there are also the lines in Bing Sake about dreams through the night that end with the moon rising, and that matches up incredibly well with the full moon and half moon people's dreams. But really, more than anything, the song also has a line that says, "We'll never meet again," and that ties 1-to-1 in with the lines, "They would not meet again." That actually pops up at the ends of both sections of the first and the second world. Alright, but with Bing Sake covered here, I do think I need a little bit of a mental reset, so what do you say we just shift things over to talking about the third world, which I think we can all fully agree is our current era right now with Luffy. Saul even says that it's a prediction of the future yet to come, and we all know it has to do with Luffy himself. Basically known that since Fishman Island, and honestly considering this chapter dropped while the anime was remastering Fishman Island, the prophecy about Luffy destroying the island itself just got a whole lot deeper than we ever thought. So let's break it all down. The first line of the third world is, "In chaos there is void. The troubled shadow remembers a promised day." Now this line just oozes Blackbeard, and I am all for it. The idea that he's got the darkness power to create.
While yes, I think it more so refers to Emu, because he is the only one from the pot. He was there. He was there in the second world. He remembers it, and thus, like, if he remembers the day, well, whew, I don't think he would. I think he would dread it.
Oozes black. There is
Lingering shadows.
void. The troubled shadow remembers a promised day. Now this line just oozes Blackbeard, and I am all for it. The idea that he's got the darkness power to create dark void and is literally the troubled shadow that remembers a promised day. But seeing
I think it more refers to Emu, because I think Emu.
as it
Anyway,
is a shadow that remembers a promised day, this could technically also be talking about Emu, I guess, who
yes.
is the shadow of the old king from the first world. Or it could possibly also
I don't
imply
think
that
he's from the
Blackbeard
first
is
world.
haunted by a shadow himself. It could explain why Moria and Thriller Bark have been such a massive arc, as it's meant to explain how the main villain, or villains, still exist after all those many years. The next line is, "They listen to the sound of the fragmented moon." I gotta say, this line is definitely something I'm still a little bit hung up upon. I mean, it's really weird and falls into the thing I spoke about earlier, where in a week from now there might just be way more to this, and it might make way more sense when we have the full Japanese and English translations ready. But for now, I'm kind of interpreting the moon as the D-Clan, and that the sound of the fragmented moon is referring to the words written by them. That could mean that the poneglyphs
No, I think it's the Kosuki, and yes, it refers to the poneglyphs. That is,
are the sound referring the more sense, where in a week from now they're up upon. I mean,
um, they will listen to the voices of Heartbroken Moon, who made the poneglyphs. It was not the it was the Kozukis, right? So Half Broken Moon, Kozukis, they look like a crescent moon. So The half-broken moon looks like basically crescent moon or a sea, I suppose. Anyway, so in their voices, the poneglyphs.
Of the fragmented moon. I gotta say, this line is definitely something I'm still a little bit hung up upon. I mean, it's really weird and falls into the thing I spoke about earlier, where in a week from now, there might just be way more to this, and it might make way more sense when we have the full Japanese and English translations ready. But for now, I'm kind of interpreting the moon as the D-clan, and that the sound of the fragmented moon is referring to the words written by them. That could mean that the poneglyphs are the sound of the fragmented moon, the message
Yes,
split into
that's what
several
I
chunks and
assumed.
pieces, fragments if you will, and then spread around the entire world. And the word sound might just literally refer to the fact that people with the voice of all things can actually hear the poneglyphs. And this interpretation would flow in pretty nicely into the next line, where it says, "The sun god dances and laughs, leading the world to its ends." Now when Luffy hears this message, and
more or
my
less the
guess is
same.
that he'll eventually hit the iconic "and he just laughed" pose that Roger did when he saw Laugh Tale.
Nah, like Luffy in fifth gear or before, he kind of does that. He laughs and dances. And I think towards the end is like there are two meanings towards it. Either it means like it's gonna be a repeat of history from the first world, or it's gonna be like it he leads them towards like the one that's gonna cause the end. Right? Essentially something along those lines. It could be multiple things.
This will be the moment that Rayleigh's words about making a different choice or coming to a different conclusion will finally come into play, and Luffy will lead the world into Ragnarok, which might be the actual end of the world, having to destroy it. This definitely explains why Loki, who thinks he's the sun god, wants to destroy the world, because he's just a big history buff and saw that the ancient giant who looks just like him in the mural, but also if he's Joy Boy, he knows he has to destroy the world himself. And also, before we move on, I also want to show you this cool thing that I saw floating around online, because Ragnarok is one of Kaido's attacks, and I should have caught this sooner, but look at what he says before he launches
Conquerors
that
of three
Kaido
worlds.
literally says Conqueror of three worlds, Ragnarok, and we just got a whole lore drop about 3 literal worlds of One Piece. I personally think, guys, that all of the Rock's pirates might know way more about the true history than we all originally thought, just saying here, or it has to do with his specific dream of becoming Joy Boy himself.
I think it's more likely that it's because of
and that's just as cool.
King.
Could also just be both.
King probably knows
back to
more
the Harley text here. It next says, "The sun will return, and so comes a new morning. They will meet again." And I do love when these things
will surely meet again, right? It's not 100%. It's like it's optimistic. They will surely meet this time, right? Because again, the third one was for the future. It's in the first and second world was of the past, I assume. It was of the past, so it's certain they will not meet again. They didn't meet in the first and second world. And the third one was like, surely they will meet again.
Nice and simple.
So this time they're gonna meet.
Great, but a clear line really helps me out a little bit, because I think it's pretty obvious that this section is referring to Nika returning in the form of Luffy, and him bringing the new dawn in the form of the sun, as well as bringing the world back to an age of prosperity and unity. And it might actually mean that the One Piece is the sun at the center of the planet that gets cracked open again with some crazy big Luffy punch. And I'll even go out on a limb
very
here
much
and
not
say that
agree
the punch
with
is
that.
going to be named the Red Garuda, based on the mythological Indian solar bird. I mean, I'm gonna have to make a whole different theory video about that one, because it's also full of giant serpents and elephants and some very interesting, like, close ties to the One Piece story and themes going on there. But ultimately, I think that this chapter is really going to make
I
the
disagree
entire
with a
world
lot of what
way
this
bigger
man
than
says
anything else.
in
And
terms
I'm
of
just
theories.
unbelievably excited to see what you think.
Crocodile
And
Mommy
to
theory is
keep
definitely
analyzing and
100% true,
changing
though.
this theory as
Just
more
kidding.
information
That
comes
is a
along.
lie.
And I think we're really close to having a really good idea
As in,
of
I
what
don't
really
believe
is
it.
going on in the One Piece world.
It's
Let's
just
just
a
say it's
joke.
definitely a boost that One Piece needed right now. And
If anyone
speaking of
if
boosts,
anyone actually
you
believes
think
that,
you need a
it's
boost of uncovering the secrets of the ancient One Piece world, check out this video below me, because it unravels my original model of the 4 ages of One Piece, and a ton of it just got confirmed. So I think with all of the information we broke down here and then watching this, I think your head is gonna start working as well.
I'm not gonna watch that. Anyway, that's the end. I've said most of what I think, with the panel. I've not said literally everything of my opinions, but I think I've said a fair amount of them. I think of the left side basically depicts the future, the third world, a great while the snake and the dragon basically, or the fire and the snake and the dragon depicts basically the fires of war among two different sides, the ancient kingdom and the dragon, basically the 20 kingdoms, and that. While I'm I'm pretty certain the demon on the left side represents Emu, I'm not 100% sure. And I think the king of the left top of the wave elephant thing, I think that represents like the wave, the flooding of the world, because like that is such a big deal in the Harley text, right? The flooding of the world, that they will not meet again. And it looks pretty certain that they represent like the hell snake, right? Which was the one of the very important things on the first text. So I'm pretty certain it's a wave. Zunisha, while important, isn't that important to the actual to what is told in the story, in the Harley text. So I think you should probably, for the most part, keep to relate the Harley text to, or the Harley, what it said there, to this text rather than everything else that we know of One Piece. I think you should be careful with that. But anyway, that's the end. Bye bye.